Meanwhile, Assam has been leading the northeastern states in protest against the Citizenship Amendment Bill. The passage of the bill in Rajya Sabha on Wednesday meant more violence in the state. All seven sisters considered the Citizenship Amendment Bill a violation of the constitution and a threat to their own people. Here's what the state of Assam is witnessing.
The northeastern states of India have always been wary of the Citizenship Amendment Bill. After the central government managed to pass the bill in Parliament on Wednesday, the wariness turned into anger. Assam became the epicenter of the northeast's fight against the Citizenship Bill, with students at its forefront. The stir turned more violent in Assam a day after Rajya Sabha adopted the legislation. In the last 24 hours, thousands defied curfew and clashed with security personnel, leaving at least 100 people, including protesters and law enforcers, injured.
इस समय जो लॉ एंड ऑर्डर की स्थिति है वो कैसी है शहर में?
अंडर कंट्रोल। हम लोग भी केयरफुल हैं और जहां-जहां किसी भी प्रकार की अघटन की आशंका है तो वहां पर हमारा भी डिप्लॉयमेंट है।
पब्लिक प्रॉपर्टी बहुत जगहों पर डैमेज हुई है, आगजनी की घटनाएं लगातार हम देख रहे हैं, कम नहीं हुई।
ये प्रॉपर्टी जो भी है असम की है, असम के लोगों की है। तो जो लोग जला रहे हैं वो भी असम के हैं, तो उन्हें इस प्रश्न का उत्तर खुद ढूंढना पड़ेगा कि ये क्यों जला रहे हैं।
Despite barricades set up by the police, students stormed out onto the streets in various parts of the city and marched along the Guwahati-Shillong road for hours.
Protest has yet again escalated in Guwahati despite the curfew. As the people defy curfew, now there is again another round of clash has erupted in the VVIP area of Guwahati. Now this advanced patrol party is moving further, but there is a stone pelting from the protesters. They are targeting the police, and finally to disperse the crowd, the smoke, the tear shells are being fired to disperse the crowd, and that's what you see, the people.
Please, let's peacefully protest against this cap, against this threat to our indigenous identity. It's a humble request from all of us.
Internet services in 10 districts of Assam stand suspended, and the army is conducting flag marches in Guwahati city and other areas. All passenger train operations to Assam and Tripura have been suspended in the view of security situation. Flight operations have also been affected by the protests. Tinsukia and Dibrugarh districts in the Brahmaputra belt of Assam have witnessed the worst protests so far ever since the passage of the Citizenship Bill. On Wednesday night, anti-cap protesters torched at least 5 shops and a BJP office in Tinsukia district. Angry protesters also set fire at the Chabua and Panitola railway stations and vandalized Union Minister Rameshwar Teli's house in Dibrugarh. There's fear in the region that the bill would impact the demography, the economy, as well as employment prospects of existing citizens across these states. In Assam, it is the fear of the Bengali-speaking immigrant. With Ashutosh in Guwahati and Kamaljeet Sandhu in Agartala, Bureau Report, India Today.
The Citizenship Bill, soon to be law, will now face the test of the Supreme Court. Joining me right now is Abhishek Manu Singhvi from the Congress. All set to approach the Supreme Court. Mr. Singhvi, when can we see that happen?
No, I'm not here to give a date and a time or a name and a detail, but I have said openly that this is a highly suspect bill. It is constitutionally infirm, morally unethical, it is divisive, it is socially and politically unwise. So I believe it is eminently fit for challenge in the Supreme Court. It is bound to happen soon. Beyond that, it doesn't really matter when, how, in which manner, because it's a done deal now, and it will take a little bit of time for the court to undo this grossly unconstitutional act.
Mr. Singhvi, on what grounds will this, bill be tested in Supreme Court? Because there has been now enough, debates on the fact whether it will stand legal scrutiny, whether it's unconstitutional. Are those the ground that would be approached where the bill goes to the Supreme Court, that it is unconstitutional, it will not stand the scrutiny of law? Or is it on the basis of that it's ethically or morally wrong?
No, it's an important question because now we must talk only law. We are now talking of Supreme Court. So forget the very serious good arguments why it's divisive, ethically wrong, a blunder, all that. Just look at the law. It is clearly unconstitutional. And this is a little bit 2 minutes is important here because your viewers must understand, because otherwise it becomes rhetoric and politics. It is a arbitrary classification, a dividing of lines which has no rational nexus to the object sought to be achieved. It therefore violates Article 14, it violates Article 21, it violates Article 25, it violates the basic structure of the Constitution. Now let me tell you why each of this is done very quickly. Assume in this lawn or where you are sitting in the room, there are 100 people. Remember, they are all actual people who have come from all the countries around India. 100. So first thing you do is, this law says, you're already existing people, mind you, in a camp in India. It says, I'll pluck out 3 countries which comprise these 100, which are, let's say, only 50 people from 3 countries. It then says, further from those 50, I will reduce it to 35 because 2 or 3 religions are excluded. Apart from Islam, Jews also. It then plucks out those 35 and in a blanket manner gives them citizenship, deeming them in a blanket manner to be persecuted people. At the same time, deeming all the other 65 not to be persecuted. Now I ask you, on common sense, and I'm quite astonished that legal apologists for the government are suggesting that this is perfectly fair and non-arbitrary. Please tell me how this line which is drawn is not arbitrary. So first the line is, and remember, it's not people are going to come tomorrow or day after. It's people already here. So you tell a room full of people that I make 100 into 35. Number 2, this 100 into 35 is done only on the basis of an artificial geographical line and much worse so on an artificial religious line. Thirdly, it conflates and mixes up 2 totally fundamentally different concepts. Citizenship is territorial. You are a citizen because I naturalize you or register you. Territorially you are connected with India. You are a refugee is a persecution concept based on geography. It has nothing to do with territoriality. Now, certainly every person around the world who is of Indian origin should be entitled to come to India because we have open hearts, we want to be a very, very compassionate country. But can you say that all people of Indian origin can come to India as refugees, but we will cut off Muslims of Indian origin or Jews of Indian origin? Secondly, the international law tells you that actually the principle of non-refoulement, which is not refusing entry. And we have signed, although we have not signed the Refugee Convention, Mr. Shah rightly pointed out, we have signed the Convention Against Torture, which is exactly the same clause and is part of customary international law. Thirdly, how do you decide persecution? When you are deeming fiction, remember, you are deeming that all the 35 people whom you have artificially carved out in this room are persecuted. And you've equally said that all the 65, even if they are persecuted, can't get entry because to them I apply a country and a religious classification. To the others I apply a persecution test.
Okay.
There is
absolutely,
it's an artificial
But, Mr. Singhvi, if I can come in, because and for the reason, right, for the reason of debate, and, because there is a lot of ambiguity whether it will stand, and you said it will only be on by the purview of the law, that it would be tested in Supreme Court, whether it is constitutional, unconstitutional. Now someone, and I want to just put those points across, someone like Mr. Harish Salve, who's fought many legal battles for this government, says that ultimately, yes, it's going to come down to Article 14 of the Constitution. Now his defense is, where he says that the CAB aims to provide the persecuted minorities in these 3 countries a special status in the naturalization process. And it does not mean in any way that other communities or people will not be naturalized at all. For other communities, the rules of general asylum process will be followed. So no violation of Article 14. So in the context that you're putting, those 35 that who've been left aside can follow the rules of general asylum.
Therefore, and I have virtually already answered Mr. Salve's argument. Therefore, would he kindly explain to us how, in that pool of 100, when you are already in India in a pool of 100, you then give blanket automatic citizenship, provided you are before 2014 December, to 35 by making two artificial slices, three country based and population based. Now you justify it by, religion based. Now you justify it by saying that everybody from those three countries is deemed to be persecuted if he is a non-Muslim. And everybody else in that room who is a Muslim, including Hazaras, Ahmadiyas and others, are deemed to be not persecuted. And along with that, you provide no test for persecution. There is no way of knowing that those 35 are persecuted people. They are simply people of a religion. The classification which the law makes is not persecution based. That's important. The law makes a classification of two kinds only, religion based and country based. And I'm sorry that that question is not answered by anyone. Also remember that since independence, I can't think of any law which is so blatantly religion based.
All right, okay.
Now, Mr. Shah gave an example that you have minority rights, you have religion-based institutions. Well, that's a very fallacious example, because affirmative action to protect and promote minority rights is of course permitted under certain articles to protect their cultural rights, their language, educational institutions. But minorities to be excluded by applying a statutory test of religion and country is anathema to Indian law, and therefore violates the basic structure as well.
All right. So, Mr. Singhvi, I'll ask you my final question. Now, he's rested. You can ask Mr. It's where Mr. Salve is concerned. Other legal experts who are actually pushing the case of the Citizens Amendment Bill say that most other articles of the Constitution rest on the fact of being a citizen. Article 15, 21, even 25 to an extent. So he says that it is because, or even the Home Minister said it is on the basis of citizen. Nobody's taking the citizenship of a Muslim in this country. How does that hold in a court of law? And lastly, as say a Congress person, now there are other, say, chief ministers of the Congress party, like Captain Amrinder Singh, who is saying that they will not implement CAB. Even though it would become a law, in what context can they say that?
Now, as far as your question about articles are concerned, I think that's a big red herring. First of all, I argued Article 14, which is non-citizen based. It applies to any person. The word used in 14 is person.
Right.
Number two, I never mentioned 15. Some people have wrongly mentioned 15. So I'm not relying on 15.
Okay.
Number three, Article 21 again is non-citizen based. It uses the word person. Number four, so these are all articles which are based on rights which extend to non-citizens. Number four, what will happen when the law is passed and it is the law of the land, I cannot say. I don't think it's possible not to apply it. But you already see, I mean, it's a very supreme irony that the Honorable Prime Minister has today blamed the opposition parties for stoking problems in the Northeast. It is you who passed the law and you blame us. Before the law is passed and when the law is being passed, states ruled by you are going up in flames. Your own parties are dissociating yourself in the Northeast, and the Prime Minister astonishingly is today blaming us. So I think you have to have a certain amount of balance. So all I would say is that this is socially divisive, politically unwise. It is for the first time creating in the whole world an image of India, which is what particularly made us contrastingly stand out from almost each of our neighbors. I'll take 15 seconds. Since the 30s and the 40s and the 50s, hundreds of countries came out of the yoke of British imperialism, Dutch imperialism, French imperialism, etc. Why is it that India alone is the most vibrant democracy in the world out of those 30, 40 countries between the 30s and the 60s? None of our neighbors are, none of the Middle Eastern countries are, none of the East Asian tigers are. And that is because of our commitment to constitutional secular values. Today, for the first time, you're threatening them. You're threatening them for what? I mean, everybody understands the purpose is not to improve the economy, not to make things simpler. It's not a priority for the country at all.
All right. Mr. Singh, we appreciate you joining us, because like you suggested in the beginning when you joined us, that ultimately the moral ethical arguments are long done and over with in Parliament. It will come down to whether this bill will stand the scrutiny of law, and we'll see that in Supreme Court. Appreciate you joining us.